Welcome to Garden, wishing you relaxing and joyful moments here. Before the grand wedding, my fiancé suddenly fell gravely ill. In a panic, I used my own money to summon a renowned physician for him. Cough, cough, cough. Qin Qian. You hurry and take 3,000 towels to the medical hall south of the city. Invite Dr. Zhou here at once. As I looked at Su Lishon's deathly pale face as he lay on the sickbed, an image suddenly flashed through my mind. The exquisite hairpin I had just seen at Jingqi Pavilion. It was truly beautiful, and it cost only 3,000 taels. I adored it. The shop assistant had even told me, "Miss, this is the most fashionable style in the entire shop right now. There's only one in all of Bianjing." What was I to do? Buy it or not? Of course I was buying it. After all, the hairpin could stay by my side every single day. Unlike this useless fiancé of mine, I secretly made up my mind. On the way home later, I would have the coachman make a detour to Jingqi Pavilion to purchase that hairpin. While my thoughts were busy calculating, Su Lishon, lying on the bed with a face drained of all color, suddenly flew into a rage. Seeing that I still hadn't moved, he swept the teacup the maid had just served straight to the floor. "Qin Qian, did you hear me? Why aren't you going?" Because of his outburst, every serving maid in the room dropped to her knees at once. Truly worthy of the young master of the Marquis Manor. When the master is furious, the servants tremble like leaves. Yet I remained utterly unmoved, my heart as calm as still water. If this had been the old me, I wouldn't have needed to come to the Su Manor at all. The moment I heard he was injured, I would have rushed to invite Dr. Zhou long ago. But now I only hated that he wasn't suffering enough. Someone, where is everyone? Drag this woman out for me. The servants outside the door hesitated, unsure what to do. What is all this commotion? A soft, gentle voice drifted in. The newcomer was none other than the eldest young miss of the Su Manor, Su Miu. The instant Su Lishuan saw her, the heavy weight seemed to lift from his body. He propped himself halfway up on the bed. "Young master, please calm your anger." Qu Su Miu's personal maid said gently. "Miss Qin must have seen how gravely ill you are and been overwhelmed with grief. She simply didn't know how to react for a moment." At her words, Su Lishon instantly became obedient, though he still snorted coldly on purpose, refusing to drop his arrogant act. "Qian, don't hold it against my foolish little brother. He's ill and his mind has grown muddled." The master and servant sang in perfect harmony, painting Su Lishuan as nothing more than an innocent young man who didn't understand the ways of the world. I sneered coldly in my heart and gracefully sidestepped the hand Su Miu reached toward me. My evasion only made her force a smile, without the slightest hint of anger. "Oh my Qian, my little brother truly keeps you in his heart. Otherwise, when he fell ill, he wouldn't have sent someone specifically to find you. As the saying goes, beating is caring and scolding is loving. He only reveals his bad temper to those closest to him." Hearing her words, I was momentarily stunned. This mouth of hers truly has the skill to turn black into white. No wonder I used to be twisted around her little finger like a spinning top. If not for the flower appreciation banquet 3 months ago, I might still be lost in delusion even now. 3 months earlier, the Prime Minister's manor had held a grand flower appreciation banquet, inviting nobility from every corner of Bianjing. As for me, Qin Qian, daughter of a mere merchant family, I originally had no right to attend. But on the day of the banquet, Su Miu sent someone to deliver a message, saying the jewelry set she was wearing that day didn't suit the occasion, and asking me to find a new one and bring it over at once. I felt uneasy, yet I thought that since we would soon be one family, there was no need to overthink it. I hurriedly followed the maid to the manor. The moment I stepped into the Prime Minister's residence, and before I could even reach the crowd, while passing the ornamental lake, I suddenly fell into the water. Thankfully I knew how to swim. After struggling for what felt like forever, I finally dragged myself onto the shore. By then, the guests had already rushed over, drawn by the commotion. Even though it was March and spring had arrived, the lake water was still bone-chillingly cold. I could only stand on the bank with my arms wrapped around myself, not knowing where to hide. My entire body shook uncontrollably. My personal maid Zitao rushed over, hastily pulled off her own thin outer robe, and draped it around me. She hugged me tightly, trying to shield me from the freezing wind, but she could not shield me from the countless pointing fingers and mocking voices of the crowd. I felt as if I were standing completely naked before them, every inch of me exposed to their scrutinizing gazes. Look at her. Where did this village girl come from? How dare she barge into the Prime Minister's manor like that? That's the eldest daughter of the Chun family. The one engaged to young Master Su. In Bianjing doesn't know her. Miss Chun clings to the Su family's young master and never lets go. She must have used some shameless trick to sneak in again. Oh dear, what thick skin she has. A maiden who isn't even married yet she sticks to her fiancé like glue. Even heaven couldn't stand it and made her fall into the water. Haha, young Master Su is truly pitiful, being entangled by a merchant girl like this. If I were him, I would have broken off the engagement long ago. Merchant girls are still merchant girls in the end. They can never truly rise above their station. Hearing those words, humiliation burned through me like fire. Although I came from a merchant family, our household was wealthy and my parents and elder brother doted on me beyond measure. Everyone who associated with the Qin family had always treated us with the utmost respect. Never once had I been pointed at and ridiculed like this in public. Even the most mild-mannered person has a breaking point. I hurriedly spoke up to explain myself. I came to deliver jewelry for Miss Su. The maids also stepped forward to testify for me, yet their discussions did not stop. Instead they grew fiercer. Oh, delivering jewelry, is that so? The legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor, could she really be short of a jewelry set from you? Some even went straight to So Miu Miu in the crowd. Miss Su, she claims she came to deliver jewelry for you. Is that true? I looked at her with eyes full of innocent expectation. I believed that as long as she stepped forward and explained, my innocence would be restored. So Miu Miu did not refuse. She smiled gently. Oh my everyone, listen to that. Whatever Qian says is naturally true. Her words lifted the heavy stone from my chest. I thought I could finally escape the accusations. But I had forgotten about human nature. These high-born children of prestigious families had no interest in listening to explanations. They only believed what they wanted to believe. Mumu, you really are too kind-hearted. Even now you're still willing to help her lie. No wonder this merchant girl keeps clinging to both you and your brother. So Miu Miu's explanation did not clear my name as I had hoped. Instead, it turned the earlier whispers into thunderous gossip. I was frantic, searching for a way to respond, when a familiar voice suddenly rang out from the crowd. My savior, Su Lishuan, is here. He'll definitely have a way to help. I turned toward him with pleading eyes, but he only glanced at my drenched figure, showing not a trace of pity. He angrily turned his face away, looking thoroughly ashamed and embarrassed. If the outsider's gossip had been stones thrown at me, then Su Lishuan's reaction was a stone covered in thorns. Just one strike was enough to make my head bleed. Only then did Su Miu Miu seem to finally notice I was soaked through. Oh dear, Qian, what are you standing there for? Qu, hurry and fetch a cloak for Miss Chun. She turned around and apologized to the young miss of the Prime Minister's manor. Qing, I've truly made a fool of myself in front of you. My little sister here has a somewhat reckless temperament, but she means no harm at all. The moment those words left her mouth, the crowd's discussion grew even louder. Lu Qingqing from the Prime Minister's manor merely gave me a meaningful glance before inviting everyone to disperse. Qu finally brought the cloak, yet in the end it was never placed on my shoulders. Because once the crowd had left, Su Lishuan strode over with murderous intent, snatched the cloak from Qu's hands, and hurled it straight into the now calm lake. You disgraceful wretch, get lost already. What face do you have to wear this cloak? I stood there frozen in shock. Get lost. He had told me to get lost. In that instant, the lake water no longer felt cold at all. My heart was far colder than the lake had ever been. After venting his anger, Su Lishuan left without a backward glance. Qu followed without the slightest hesitation, hurrying after him. I was left standing alone, staring at their retreating figures. I simply could not understand it. He was my fiancé. How could he be so heartless toward me? In the past, Su Lishuan had always been cold toward me, yet he accepted every single gift I gave him. So Miu Miu had once told me, my brother actually has feelings for you. It's just that he values his reputation too much. Sometimes he can't put aside his pride, so he uses a fierce attitude to cover it up. Back then I had naively believed every word. That was why I had always been the one taking the initiative. But now I was no longer certain. I wanted to chase after him and ask clearly. Ask whether he truly had any feelings for me at all. No sooner thought than done. I staggered forward and finally spotted him behind a rockery. Qu was right there with him. Ah, young master, we're outside. The Su Lishuan who had just been cold and ruthless had suddenly turned as passionate as raging fire. He pulled Qu tightly into his arms and kissed her fiercely. Qu's voice came out soft and coquettish. Young master, hold back a little. What if eldest Miss Chun sees us? So what if she sees? That brainless woman will still throw herself at me anyway, won't she? If it weren't for the fact that her family has money, would I even spare her a glance? Qu, be a good girl and let me have some fun. Qu smiled charmingly and cooperated fully. Young master, eldest miss has instructed you to coax Qin Qian properly. Su Lixuan was lost in devouring Qiyu's lips. I know. Only by indulging her a little longer can we keep her in the position of legitimate wife. Has eldest sister obtained the medicine yet? The wedding day is almost here. Qiyu gently soothed him, yet every word that left her mouth was as sharp as a blade. Young master, rest assured, the medicine is already in hand. We only need her to drink it on the wedding night. The next day she'll catch a cold, and day by day her condition will worsen. She'll suffer endless torment and pain before slowly dying. Medicine. They wanted to poison me. They wanted to take my life, hiding behind the rockery. My limbs went numb at their words, and I collapsed to the ground. The cold wind from the lake was nothing compared to the venom that poured from their mouths. Swords and spears were nothing compared to these razor-sharp words. I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms, forcing my eyes to stay wide open as I watched the two of them entwine. Tears poured down, but I wiped them away with my sleeve the instant they fell. I had to see clearly. I had to see these two beasts in human skin for exactly what they were. Willing to murder me just to seize the Qin family's fortune. I don't remember how I made it back to the Qin Manor. I only know that after I returned, I could no longer hold back and came down with a severe cold. Night after night I was tormented by nightmares. In those dreams, Su Lixuan and So Miumu's scheme succeeded perfectly. On the wedding night, after I drank the poisoned wine, I collapsed onto the bed and could not rise again. The physicians could find no cause. From that day on, I lay bedridden and gravely ill. So Miumu quickly seized the Qin family's shops and businesses. Su Lixuan squandered my dowry as he pleased. The two of them used the excuse of saving me to send my elder brother out to search for rare medicine. In truth, they had already bribed assassins to lie in wait along the road. My brother, frantic to save me, agreed without thinking twice. In the end, he died on that road, pierced through the heart by 10,000 arrows. After my brother's death, the Qin family had no heir. My parents' hair turned white overnight. Su Lixuan played the role of the perfect son-in-law in front of them every single day. Once he had won their complete trust, he swiftly seized every last asset of the Qin family. They cleaned out the entire Qin household so no one could say a word. They locked my parents in the woodshed, posted guards outside, and gave them no food. In the end, my parents starved to death inside that shed. On my sickbed, I kept muttering over and over, Samuma Su Lixuan, from now on, we cannot live under the same sky. Perhaps because my illness was so severe, when I finally woke, my parents and elder brother were all keeping vigil by my bedside. I threw myself into their arms and wept bitterly, repeating through my sobs, I want to break off the engagement. They had probably already learned what happened at the flower banquet. They agreed at once. But after the tears stopped, I finally calmed down. Even if they all agreed to the break-off, actually ending the engagement was far from easy. Su Lixuan was the young master of the Marquis Manor. Even though the Marquis title had declined, a Marquis Manor was still a Marquis Manor, lacking real power but possessing deep influence. I was only the daughter of a merchant. The difference in status was simply too vast. How could a merchant family contend against them? Moreover, the engagement between us had been arranged under very special circumstances. Qian, don't worry. If you truly want to break it off, we will naturally support you. My elder brother said. It's just that the betrothal was arranged by that old monk. Breaking it won't be simple. The old monk my brother spoke of was Abbot Wu Wei of Moshan Temple outside Bianjing. He had once been a nameless little monk. One rainy day, the county magistrate's wife, Sun Shanglin, took shelter from the rain inside Moshan Temple. Sun Shanglin and the magistrate had a loving marriage, but after 10 years they still had no children. This had always been their greatest sorrow. That day, feeling it was fate that she had entered the temple, Sun Shanglin knelt and prayed sincerely. Abbot Wu Wei appeared at exactly the right moment and prophesied that she would soon receive happy news. Sun Shanglin had not taken his words to heart. For years she had consulted every famous physician and visited every temple, yet every promise of a child ended in disappointment. By then she had already lost all hope. No one expected that 2 months later Sun Shanglin would truly become pregnant. From that day on, Abbot Wu Wei's name spread like wildfire. People flocked to him for divination, including the old madam of the Su Manor. Originally invited by the old madam, Abbot Wu Wei read Su Lixuan's fortune, and declared that only by becoming engaged to a merchant's daughter could Su Lixuan enjoy longevity and blessings. The old madam returned to the capital displeased. On the way back, the carriage became stuck in mud on a slippery, rain-soaked road. Help could not arrive in time, and I happened to pass by. Seeing the carriage trapped, I thought that when someone was in trouble it was only right to lend a hand, even if we were strangers. I ordered my servants to help free the carriage. Who could have known that single act of kindness would entangle my own marriage fate? Afterward, the old madam sent her steward to the Qin Manor. On the surface it was to express gratitude, but in truth she used both threats and promises to force the Qin family to accept the engagement. I had not wanted it. My family also knew the huge gap in status between us, and that it was not an ideal match. They tried repeatedly to refuse, but the Su family was still a Marquis Manor. Although the title had come solely because Su Lixuan's great-aunt had once been the empress, the Marquis title remained. Refusing indefinitely was not a solution. Just as we were searching for a way out, fate played another cruel trick. On the road home one day, I encountered Su Lixuan. He was galloping on a fine steed, long fingers gripping the reins. The horse reared on its hind legs, yet he sat firm and steady. With a flick of his riding crop, he lashed out at the scoundrel harassing a woman by the roadside. That single strike not only drove the villain away, but also swept away the fear in my heart. I thought that a young master who was both elegant and chivalrous must surely possess an upright character. How could he not make a good husband? That very day I returned home and agreed to the engagement. Who could have imagined Su Lixuan would turn out to be such a person? The Su siblings still had no idea I had already seen through their entire scheme. So Miu Miu was still sweetly urging me to spend money and invite Dr. Zhou. Before I could open my mouth, Su Lixuan, who had just been propping himself up, suddenly clutched his chest, fell back onto the bed, and began gasping for air in great heaving breaths, his face twisted in unbearable agony. "Oh no, young master, what's wrong with you?" Qiu was the first to cry out in alarm, so Miu Miu also rushed to the bedside at once. "Qian, hurried and invite Dr. Zhou here." I turned and immediately instructed the servant at the door. "Qiu, you're the quickest on your feet. Go invite Dr. Zhou right now." Both of them froze at my words. Seeing that Su Lixuan looked like he was about to stop breathing any second, I urged them again. "What are you waiting for? Go, or do you expect me to run there myself?" Qiu probably realized Su Lixuan's suffering wasn't an act. She panicked and stopped thinking clearly. "But miss, I don't have any money." "Himph, of course you don't. You want to invite Dr. Zhou but don't even consider whether you're qualified." Dr. Zhou was the most famous divine physician in Bianjing. Saving the dying and healing the wounded was nothing unusual for him. However, divine physicians always had their own eccentric tempers. He had once declared that for the poor he would treat them free of charge, but for the wealthy and noble, he required 3,000 taels as the door, knocking fee, another 3,000 taels as the foot, running fee, and yet another 3,000 taels as the consultation fee, for a total of 9,000 taels per visit. Everyone's eyes instantly turned toward me. Even Su Lixuan, who had been groaning in pain on the bed, struggled to lift his head and look in my direction. Where would I get the money from? Last year our Chun family had been falsely accused of selling counterfeit goods. The scandal had blown up all the way to the local magistrate's court, and the entire capital knew about it, yet we still couldn't clear our name. At that time I even begged elder sister for help. I said calmly. "Do you remember what elder sister told me back then?" "Oh, I remember now. You said the Su Manor is a prestigious noble family and had no interest in getting involved in such dirty matters. If the Qin family was truly innocent, we naturally wouldn't need your help to step in." So Miu Miu's expression turned awkward, but she still spoke with perfect composure. "Hasn't your family already received compensation? That matter is over, isn't it? The Qin family is incredibly wealthy. Surely a small compensation like that didn't empty your coffers." Her words sent a chill straight through my heart. Indeed, in her eyes, the Qin family was nothing more than a money bank for them, and not even an important one. Because of that incident, the Qin family's reputation had taken a heavy blow. Our usual trading partners began avoiding us, and our income had gradually dried up. So Miu Miu forced out two awkward laughs and then affectionately took my hand. "Aya, Qian, I know the Qin family is a long-established merchant house. Sooner or later you'll turn misfortune into fortune again." She continued sweetly, "But look at my poor little brother lying here so ill. You wouldn't have the heart to abandon him, would you? I remember you once mentioned that your father and brother had already prepared a generous dowry for you. Why don't you use part of that dowry to help out first?" I took a step back, causing Su Mumu to stumble forward. Qiu quickly caught her with nimble hands. I smiled faintly and stepped forward to help Su Mumu up. Leaning close to her ear so only she could hear, I whispered, "Elder sister Miu Miu, a few days ago I ran into young Master Tao at Baoshu Hall. He seemed extremely fond of a particular inkstone, but it was extremely precious. worth 10,000 taels. Young Master Tao couldn't afford it and could only return to his manor empty-handed. Su Miu's eyes lit up. I thought of you and young Master Tao, so I bought that inkstone and had it delivered to the Tao Manor under your name. The moment those words left my mouth, delight bloomed across Su Miu's entire face. She completely forgot about her brother's critical condition. Perfect. The more distracted she is, the better. Otherwise all the effort I put into finding this medicine would go to waste. After all, it took me 2 whole months to obtain it through special channels. Right now I really don't have any money left. Why don't you pay for it first, elder sister? When Su Miu heard that I wanted her to pay, her eyes widened in shock. What did you just say? I smiled brightly and announced loudly, since elder sister has offered to pay for Dr. Zhou herself, I can rest easy now. She tried to pull me back, but I lowered my voice again. Elder sister, you wouldn't want me to go to young Master Tao and ask for that inkstone back, so we can use the money to treat young Master Su, would you? Of course that's also an option. It's just that I'm afraid your image in young Master Tao's eyes might. Su Miu immediately released me. Go on then. Himph, just as I expected. Su Miu was extremely selfish. Young Master Tao was the legitimate son of the Vice Minister of Revenue and the man of her dreams. She would never allow herself to lose face in front of him over money. Then I won't disturb young Master Su's rest any longer. I gave a polite curtsy. Farewell. After successfully leaving the Su Manor, I immediately headed straight for Jinkui Pavilion, terrified that someone else might snatch the hairpin before I could buy it. Wearing my newly purchased hairpin, I returned home in complete satisfaction. Without my financial support, the room naturally fell into chaos. Unfortunately, Su Lishuan didn't die. Su Miu, of course, couldn't force me to pay because of her own interests, but she also refused to let me off easily. She went and brought out her mother, Zhang Ruyu. For the sake of her son, Zhang Ruyu had no choice but to clench her teeth and use her own private savings to invite Dr. Zhou. With Dr. Zhou's help, Su Lishuan's condition stabilized. However, he drifted in and out of consciousness. Given his state, the wedding was naturally postponed. The Su family, furious with me, openly announced that the marriage would be delayed. I happily accepted the news. But how could the Su family possibly let me go so easily? The postponement of the wedding triggered waves of ugly rumors about me. Throughout every alley and street, people whispered that I was a heartless woman who abandoned her husband in his time of need. The Su family believed this would be enough to control me. They waited with perked ears, expecting me to arrive at their door with lavish gifts to apologize. What they didn't know was that at this very moment I was lounging comfortably on a chaise in the Tune Manor, basking in the warm sunlight. Want me to apologize? Keep dreaming. On such a beautiful day, I should enjoy it to the fullest. But my peaceful days didn't last long before someone came to disturb them. Young miss, people from the Su Manor have arrived. They're here, faster than I expected. Only 3 days had passed, shorter than I had anticipated. It seemed the Su Manor was truly in dire straits. After all, the Su Manor was nothing but an empty shell these days. If not for the Qin family secretly supporting them for the past few years, they probably couldn't even afford decent clothes. Now that Su Lishuan, the pillar of the Su family, had collapsed, everything required money. The 9,000 taels for Dr. Zhou's visit was not something ordinary people could afford. They must be as anxious as ants on a hot pan right now. Let's go. When Xiao Tao and I leisurely arrived at the main hall, Zhang Ruyu's sharp voice was already echoing through the walls. How exactly have you people been raising your daughter? My Xuana is lying bedridden, yet none of you have shown the slightest concern. Think back to how well Xuanda treated your Qian in the past. He gave her gold, silver, jewelry, whatever she wanted. I strode across the threshold and smiled. Madam's words are truly interesting. I have never once received any gold or jewelry from Su Lishuan. The only thing I know is that whenever he wanted to buy jewelry for some other young lady, he would casually take a small pearl from somewhere and send it to our manor, ordering me to settle the bill at Jinkui Pavilion. Zhang Ruyu was rendered speechless by my words. Her finger trembled with rage. You even a pearl is still jewelry. How dare you claim you never received anything? What a petty, low-born creature. Calculating every little thing like this. If madam isn't going to be calculative, then I'll trouble you to help Su Lishuan settle all the debts he's accumulated over the years. Xiao Tao stepped forward and presented a thick stack of bills in front of Zhang Ruyu. Furious, she slapped the entire stack to the floor and pointed straight at my father. Qin Ye, is this the obedient daughter your Qin family raised? If she continues behaving like this, I fear she will never be worthy of becoming Xuanda's principal wife. In Bianjing, countless young ladies from good families would kill for the chance to marry into our Su family. If not for the old madam's sake, did you really think the Qin family would ever have the honor of forming a marriage alliance with us? She spoke with absolute certainty, as though the position of Madame Su was something our Qin family had desperately begged for. She seemed to have completely forgotten that this engagement had been forced upon us, because of one of Abbot Wu Wei's prophecies. After speaking for a long time, my parents were momentarily at a loss for words. She seemed to regain her confidence. After a brief silence, she straightened her clothes. Never mind, your family are merchants. It's normal that you don't understand proper etiquette. As long as you're willing to humbly accept guidance, I will personally put in the effort to teach you in the future. However, Xuana is currently gravely ill and the cause is still unknown. We need Dr. Zhou to remain by his side day and night. At this point her voice paused deliberately, clearly waiting for us to speak, but my parents and I merely exchanged a glance and remained silent. If you still have any conscience left, show your sincerity. Seeing her growing frustrated, I covered my mouth and laughed softly. When Zhang Ruyu saw that I had finally spoken, her arrogance immediately returned. Isn't the Qin family supposed to be the richest? Then bring 9,000 taels of silver right now and hand it to Dr. Zhou. Be quick about it. I'm only giving you this chance to prove yourself for Xuana's sake. If it were anyone else, I wouldn't even bother. Hurry up and prepare the money. Once it's paid, I'll take you to kneel before the old madam and beg for forgiveness. I gestured for the maids to carry in several large chests. When Zhang Ruyu saw the chests being brought in, her expression softened considerably. Running away and abandoning Xuana a few days ago was truly too much. Even though you've brought the money now, you must still kneel for 3 full days in front of the Su Manor gates to pray for Xuanda's recovery. Madam, what kind of joke are you telling? I interrupted with a smile. I didn't realize you had such a talent for comedy. You, Qin Qiyan, you have some nerve. Be careful, or when I return I'll have Xuana break off the engagement with you. I stopped smiling and opened one of the chests. Madam, please take a look. Inside the chest were only a few pieces of ordinary porcelain. There was no gold, silver or jewelry to be seen. What is the meaning of this? I took the original betrothal gift list from Xiao Tao's hands, grabbed Zhang Ruyu's wrist, and pressed the list into her palm. This is the complete list of betrothal gifts. There's no need for Madam to check them one by one, because every single chest your Su family brought that year was filled with nothing but stones. Don't you dare slander us. Madam, weren't you the one who wanted to break off the engagement? Here, take your Su family's betrothal gifts and return to your manor. She clearly couldn't believe that a mere merchant's daughter would dare speak to her this way. I laughed coldly. I advise you not to play the game of soft threats. We won't fall for it. Madam may not have understood. Allow me to say it again clearly. I looked her straight in the eyes. The Qin family wishes to break off the engagement. Zhang Ruyu was about to explode with curses when a servant suddenly rushed over and whispered urgently in her ear. Zhang Ruyu's expression shifted dramatically. She looked us over from head to toe, then suddenly changed her attitude completely. Fine, if you want to break it off, then we'll break it off. But you must return all the betrothal gifts to me. That year the Su family brought 2 full chests of antiques, paintings, calligraphy, gold, silver, and precious gems. She still wants to take a bite out of the Qin family even now. This chest contains 1,000 taels of silver. Madam may take it. There is no more. 1,000 taels. Do you take me for a beggar? Madam, I advise you to accept it while you still can. Because if I refuse to break off the engagement right now, whether or not you can even face the old madam again is another question entirely. How do you know? Zhang Ruyu realized she had slipped up and immediately shut her mouth. Of course I know. The servant who had just whispered to her had informed her that the old madam had ordered Su Lishuan and me to break off the engagement. The old madam of the Su family was power, hungry and deeply devoted to Buddhism. Zhang Ruyu had been suppressed and controlled by her ever since marrying into the family. Although she had resisted, filial piety weighed heavily upon her, and she lacked the ability to fight back. She could only obey. Now that the old madam had given the order, she didn't dare disobey. Moreover, she had never been satisfied with this marriage for her son anyway. Heinf. Breaking it off is good. Being engaged to someone like you is simply tarnishing the Su family's reputation. Just wait and see how a rejected merchant girl, like you, will survive in the future. Zheng Ruyu ordered the servants to carry the chest out through the main gate, watching as they made a show of it down the street. Qian, letting them parade around the streets like this, I'm afraid your reputation will suffer even more, my mother said, full of worry. I held my mother's hand tightly. Mother, don't worry, this is exactly what I want. I want the entire world to know that Su Lishuan and I have broken off our engagement. Father and mother, just wait patiently. I have my own ways. The very next day after the engagement was broken, Su Lishuan miraculously recovered from his illness. My reputation as a heartless woman who abandoned her fiancé spread even further, and the Su family, as if to cement this image, quickly arranged a new engagement for Su Lishuan under the old madam's orders. This time they chose Miss D, the only daughter of a 6th-rank official's family. Although Miss D's background wasn't particularly high, her mother came from a merchant family. Their wealth wasn't as great as the Qin families, but it far surpassed that of ordinary official families. These days Su Lishuan was said to be extremely pleased with himself. Meanwhile I remained inside the Marquis Manor every day, never stepping foot outside. Everyone assumed I was too heartbroken to show my face. What they didn't know was that I was inside leisurely drinking tea and celebrating with my elder brother. Brother, see, wasn't I right? Your idea was indeed the best. In truth, ever since the flower appreciation banquet, I had been looking for every possible way to break off the engagement. As the saying goes, the bell must be untied by the person who tied it. Since this marriage had begun because of Abbot Wu Wei, then he would be the one to end it. I had never believed there were truly people in this world who could foresee the future. I only believed in man-made coincidences. Thus I had secretly ordered people to monitor Abbot Wu Wei. In the end I discovered that his so-called heavenly prophecies were complete frauds. In his early years his random fortune-telling had never been accurate, so naturally no one believed him. The only time he had prophesied Sun Shanglin's pregnancy correctly had been pure luck. Thanks to that one stroke of fortune he had become famous overnight. From then on he spent a large sum of money hiring actors to help him stage elaborate performances. Master and servant worked together, and Abbot Wu Wei's reputation as a divine prophet grew rapidly. The old madam of the Su Manor had been the first to take the bait. Wu Wei was extremely skilled at reading people's expressions and flattered the old madam beautifully. As for his so-called marriage fate reading for Su Lishuan, it had merely been a way to make himself seem special. Once I understood his background clearly, controlling him became easy. When I laid out all the evidence of his fraudulent activities before him, he very wisely agreed to personally go before the old madam and retract his previous marriage prophecy. With Su Lishuan's sudden illness at the front and Abbot Wu Wei's changed prophecy at the back, the old madam of the Su Manor had no choice but to abandon this marriage alliance. Now that Su Lishuan had miraculously recovered and gained a new engagement, he was naturally overjoyed. That day was the old madam of the Tao family's birthday banquet. The Su siblings once again attended the event with their heads held high. However, not long after the banquet began, shocking news spread like wildfire. The eldest young miss of the Su family had been caught secretly meeting with a beggar from the neighboring alley. She had played too wildly and was still unconscious. When I heard this news, I was in the secluded rear garden of the Tao Manor, playing chess and drinking tea with Tao Yanran. Tao Yanran was the youngest granddaughter of the Tao family and the most beloved. Unlike the other women in the Tao family who were strictly bound by etiquette, she was clever, mischievous, and had an intense passion for business. Fortunately the Tao family indulged her and allowed her to run wild. Because of this, when I first entered the business world at the age of 15, my very first major rival had been none other than Tao Yanran. That time I had nearly lost to her. My narrow victory had left the previously undefeated Tao Yanran extremely discouraged. She stubbornly insisted that she had only lost because she didn't understand the ways of the world. But when she saw that her opponent was a girl the same age as her, she suddenly burst into loud sobs. Wah, Uncle Yang even praised me for having a natural talent for business. You're all liars. I couldn't bear to see her cry. I hurriedly took out my handkerchief to wipe her face and comforted her seriously. Don't cry. Actually it wasn't that impressive. Hearing this, Tao Yanran froze for a second, then cried even harder. Over time our secret meetings turned us into the closest of confidantes. Because of Tao Yanran's official family background, we rarely interacted in public. During the period when I was engaged to the Su family, her maternal grandmother fell gravely ill, forcing her to stay in Yangzhou to keep the old lady company. Now that Tao Yanran had finally returned, the first news she heard was that I had broken off my engagement. Your taste really is terrible, you know. How could you swallow something as rotten as that Su family shrimp? I poured a fresh pot of tea and placed it in front of her. Yes, yes, my judgment was completely clouded for a moment. So Mumu truly has guts, daring to use my elder brother as a shield. Today she must bear the consequences of her own scheme. You deserve punishment too for letting it happen. How dare she turn my brother into target practice? Tao Yanran set the 10,000 Tao Linkstone in front of me. That's why I came today to apologize to you properly. Tao Yanran's elder brother was Tao Ying, the legitimate eldest son of the Tao family, and the one they had poured all their resources into raising. Fortunately, he had never disappointed them. At 15 he had already become a celebrated young scholar, praised throughout Bianjing. Countless noble daughters secretly longed for him. So Miu was one of them. When I discovered So Miu's feelings for Tao Ying, I never told her that because of my friendship with Tao Yanran. I had actually known him for years. Deep down I had already sensed that Su Mumu and I belonged to entirely different worlds, so I naturally kept the connection hidden. It was a blessing I never mentioned my ties to the Tao family, otherwise she would have pestered and used me endlessly. The day Su Mumu tried to force me to pay for the medicine so she could escape, I deliberately lied and told her I had already gifted that inkstone to Tao Ying in her name. In truth, Tao Ying had accepted it only because Tao Yanran and I often exchanged gifts and occasionally passed something to him as well. He simply assumed it was another present from me meant for his sister, and took it without thinking. Fine. Since you offered such a clever plan, I won't hold it against you anymore. Thank you for being so magnanimous, Yanran. I grinned and skipped over to tuck a fresh flower into her hair. In reality, the moment So Mumu stepped foot into the Tao Manor, I knew my chance had arrived. So Mumu was a smiling fox who never hesitated to use any dirty trick. Since she loved to smile so much, I would make sure she smiled all the way while personally choosing the path that would ruin the rest of her life. If she hadn't caused trouble at the banquet, everything would have remained peaceful, but not long after the feast began she lost her way. In the rear garden, a maid pointed east and said, "Just keep going straight and you'll reach the main hall." Instead, So Miu deliberately headed west toward the emerald bamboo courtyard. This young miss clearly hadn't come unprepared. "Miss, please don't go any farther. The emerald bamboo courtyard ahead is where the eldest young master cultivates his mind and rests. It is a restricted area of the Tao family. No one may enter. If you truly lost your way, please follow the eastern path." Yet no matter how the maid tried to guide her, So Miu stubbornly refused to turn back. After shooing the servant away, she charged straight into the emerald bamboo courtyard. Fortunately, I had prepared everything in advance. The moment So Miu stepped inside, she was knocked unconscious and tossed into the abandoned house next door to the Tao Manor. When Zhang Ruyu screamed in the banquet hall that Su Miu was nowhere to be found, shameful moans suddenly echoed from the neighboring residents. Zhang Ruyu acted as if she already knew Su Miu was in the emerald bamboo courtyard. Ignoring everyone's attempts to stop her, she led a group of concerned friends, and finally forced her way past the Tao family guards, successfully barging into the courtyard. Only when they arrived did they discover the sounds were coming from the deserted yard of the neighboring house. The crowd swarmed over. "Oh my, young Master Tao is truly too unrestrained, carrying on like this in broad daylight. Since you already have feelings for each other, why not ask the elders to arrange the marriage at once? Madam Tao, what do you think?" Zhang Ruyu was enthusiastically offering advice, when the next second Tao Ying appeared before her and asked calmly, "Madam, what did you just say? This junior doesn't quite understand." Zhang Ruyu stared at the young man in front of her, then turned to look at the tightly shut door of the room. Why are you here? Madam's words are truly strange. Where else should I be? Or is there somewhere else I'm supposed to be?" Zhang Ruyu was momentarily stunned into confusion. "Weren't you inside the room just now? Then who is the man in there?" The moment those words left her mouth, everyone understood everything. Right then, some clumsy servant accidentally bumped the door open with a loud crash. Inside the room, two naked figures were tangled together. Even so, everyone could clearly see the man on top had a filthy face covered in grime. His rough, calloused fingers roamed wildly over So Miu's body. The contrast between his pitch-black, dirt-caked nails and her fair, delicate skin was stark and revolting. So Miu lay there like a broken doll, too exhausted to struggle. She could only endure the man's violation. Her face was completely exposed to the crowd. "Ah, don't look!" Zhang Ruyu shrieked like a madwoman. Su Lishon, the coward, hid among the spectators. The commotion was enormous, yet So Mumu remained as unresponsive as a wooden log. Only then did everyone realize So Mumu had been drugged with something extremely potent. Old Madame Tao immediately ordered, "Separate these two at once and summon the imperial physician, Chief Zhang of the Dali Temple. I'll trouble you to investigate this matter personally. This old body wants to see exactly who harbored such malicious intent, dared to commit such a shameless act on my property, and tried to frame my granddaughter." With old Madame Tao's command, no one dared object. Zheng Ruyu stared at her daughter's tragic state and wanted to argue, but there were too many witnesses and old Madame Tao's earlier words left her no room to maneuver. In the end she could only shut her mouth. So Mumu had dug her own grave with her schemes. She never woke up again. The day Chief Zhang uncovered the truth, the Su family, desperate to hush up the scandal, immediately sent Su Mumu to a remote rural courtyard and abandoned her there. She lasted less than 5 days. When the news reached the Su manor, Zhang Ruyu collapsed from shock. Old Madame Su grieved for a while, but Su Lixuan acted as if nothing had happened. He took his newly engaged fiancée, Dai Rong, straight to Jingqi Pavilion for a good time. He seemed to know I was inside the building. The moment he entered, he started mocking me loudly. "Shopkeeper, are you still planning to do business? You actually dare let a husband, abandoning woman like her inside?" I looked at the Su Lixuan standing before me. Though he appeared healthy on the surface, his eyes were deeply shadowed and his steps unsteady. I said nothing, only felt nauseated. That disgust had never left me since the day I saw his true face. "Hurry up and throw this husband, abandoning wretch out so she doesn't dirty everyone's eyes." The waiter panicked, unsure what to do. The surrounding customers began whispering furiously. I had no intention of enduring it any longer. I walked slowly over to him. "Since ancient times we've only heard of generals dying in battle, civil officials dying for their remonstrations, and scholars dying for their ideals and integrity. We have never heard of a man being cursed to death by a woman. If a man can be so easily cursed to death, it only proves his own lifespan was already at its end." Everyone was stunned. No one could believe a mere merchant's daughter would dare speak such words. "If young Master Su truly believes he is that kind of person, then I shall take my leave first. I refuse to carry this baseless crime on my head. Young Master Su, please take care of yourself, and I advise all the other young ladies to stay far away from him. Otherwise, when his time truly comes, he might turn around and slander them as the ones who cursed him. That would be truly unfair." With those words, I flicked my sleeve and left. In Su Lixuan's eyes, my swift departure looked like a pathetic escape. He was delighted. That very night he headed straight for Pear Blossom Alley. The woman living there was none other than Leng Niang, the maiden he had once rescued from a scoundrel. After the rescue, however, he hadn't allowed her to return home. Instead he had forced her to stay in the alley as his secret mistress. Leng Niang had resisted many times but failed. She could only weep in silence day after day. Su Lixuan visited whenever he pleased, and tonight was one of those nights. But deep in the night, Su Lixuan suddenly went mad. Half naked, he ran screaming down the main street, staring frantically at his lower body and muttering, "It's up! It's up!" The night patrol soldiers saw his deranged state and moved to arrest him. The moment he spotted them rushing toward him, he froze as if possessed. He pulled out a dagger and aimed it straight at his own crotch. Thankfully the soldiers reacted quickly and stopped him in time. By the time they dragged him back to the Su manor, Su Lixuan had regained his senses and dawn had broken. Yet the story of him running naked through the streets had already spread to every corner of the city. Crash! Teacups and teapots were smashed to the floor. "Go bring Leng Niang to me right now." The servants obeyed and left. Qiu tried to slip away but was yanked back into Su Lixuan's arms. No matter what he did, however, there was no reaction below. Qiu stared at him in disbelief. "Slut, get out." Qiu crawled desperately toward the door, but Su Lixuan dragged her back inside like a madman. "Young master, spare me." The moment Qiu was pulled away, Leng Niang knelt before me, kowtowing in gratitude. "Thank you, Miss Qun, for saving my life. Without you, I fear I would never have escaped this nightmare." I studied Leng Niang's face. Sunken cheeks, heavy dark circles, sallow complexion. It was obvious she had not been cared for at all. Su Lixuan truly is disgusting. He wanted to keep a mistress but couldn't even feed her properly. Opening. Of course it was normal. Without my money supporting them, where would the Su family get the funds to maintain an outsider? "Go with Tai. She will take you somewhere safe." The moment Leng Niang left, news arrived that old Madame Su had suffered a stroke and collapsed. "Young miss," they say the old madam was so worried that Su Lixuan's scandal would ruin his new engagement, that she stormed over to the Di family, demanding Miss D marry into the Su manor immediately. The D family refused. While the two sides were arguing, a servant reported that Su Lixuan had flown into a rage and killed Chu Yu. Miss D was so terrified she broke off the engagement on the spot. Old Madame Su still wanted to argue, but Lai Fu seized the chance and whispered into her and Zhang Ruyu's ears that Su Lixuan could no longer perform in the bedroom. The old madam couldn't withstand the shock, combined with the heavy metals that had accumulated in the immortality pills she had been taking. She suffered a stroke and collapsed immediately. Xiao Tao finished her report and added angrily, "Serves them right, a family without virtue." I patted Xiao Tao's shoulder. "Remember to settle everything properly for Lai Fu's family. On top of the 500 taels I promised earlier, give him another 500 as a reward. Also tell Abbot Wu Wei he is not to use those so-called immortality pills to harm anyone else. Give him 3 days to leave Bianjing." Xiao Tao nodded and hurried out. With old Madame Su and Zhang Ruyu both bedridden, the D family seized the opportunity to send them back to the Su manor, and officially broke off the engagement. The entire Su household was now in ruins, some dead, some crippled. It seemed they could no longer stir up any more trouble, but Su Lixuan truly lived up to the Su family name. After being rejected by the D family, he actually had the audacity to come crawling back to me. He stood dramatically outside the Qin manor gates, full of feigned deep affection, and shouted loudly, "Qiyan, I was wrong. Breaking off the engagement was never my wish. I was delirious from illness and did something foolish. I love you, please forgive me." I hid behind the main door and watched through the crack as he knelt there. Xiao Tao, "See, none of the men who come looking for me in the future will be any good. Is Lai Fu here yet?" Xiao Tao nodded. The 2 little buns on her head bounced adorably. The moment she answered, an old servant came running from afar and dropped to his knees in front of Su Lixuan. "Young master, we found it, we found it. The physician said that 100 miles outside the city, soul-returning grass has appeared. It can save the old madam's life. Madam urges you to send someone to fetch it immediately." Lai Fu spoke so openly in broad daylight that Su Lixuan couldn't order anyone else to go. As the younger generation present, if he sent someone in his stead, the label of unfilial would fall squarely on his head. After a moment of calculation, he leaped onto his horse and called toward the Qin manor, "Qiyan, wait for me. I'll return with the medicine." He urged the horse into a gallop and rode out of the city. Though his posture was no longer as proud as it had been years ago, he still carried a trace of his former elegance. What a pity his heart had already rotted through. 15 days later, instead of news that Su Lixuan had obtained the herb, the report that arrived was of his death, pierced through the heart by 10,000 arrows. It turned out that on the way to fetch the medicine, he had fallen into a hunter's trap and been shot by hundreds of arrows. When the news of Su Lixuan's death reached the Su manor, Zhang Ruyu refused to believe it. She ordered the maids to take her to the site of the accident, but before the carriage even arrived, it lost control during the frantic journey. Jiang Ruyu fell from the carriage and never moved again. From that day on, no one remained in the Su family capable of taking charge. The servants, seeing no salaries coming, fled one after another. Only Zhang Ruyu and old Madame Su were left lying in the empty manor. A few days later, word spread that the 2 of them had starved to death inside their rooms. Clink, I set my teacup down. The Su family truly received their retribution in full view of everyone. Good riddance, at least they won't be able to use their power to bully any more innocent girls. Tao Yanran drained her cup in one gulp. Exactly, the heavy stone that's been pressing on your heart is finally gone. Come, come. We must celebrate properly. A new little restaurant just opened south of the city. Let's go check it out later. Check out what? The male courtesans there. Is that really appropriate? I wonder what those men's figures are like. I'm already this old and I've only ever seen that shameless couple doing it. It was disgusting to watch. This time I definitely need to look properly and cleanse my eyes. The moment I finished speaking, my face burned bright red. This doesn't seem quite right. Tao Yanran froze for a second when she saw my reaction, then burst out laughing. Ha ha ha. Qin Qiyan, oh Qin Qiyan, what exactly are you thinking? Ha 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 ha. That restaurant is packed with customers every single day. Yet look at your own shop, empty as a graveyard. I only told you to go there to learn some business experience. I could only laugh helplessly. Ha! Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched your heart, please like, subscribe and leave a comment below. Your support means the world to us.